You ever look at someone and think, this one could never hurt me? That's how I looked at Jesse. Tall, golden smile, strong arms that made me feel safe, for once. I believed he loved me, not my bank account. I believed him when he said I was enough. But every lie has an expiration date. And his? His was closer than I ever imagined. Before I begin, I want to say thank you to all my loyal subscribers who keep coming back for more dramatic, emotional real-life stories. If you haven't already, please turn on notifications so you never miss the next twist. And if you're new here, subscribe to the channel to support these true, inspiring stories of love, betrayal, and survival. Let's get into it. My name is Vivian Monroe, and I'm 52 years old. I live in Los Angeles, California, in a sleek glass sandstone home that sits high on a hill, overlooking the city I once conquered. I built my fashion brand with blood, sweat, and more tears than I care to count. After divorcing a man who drained me emotionally and financially, I swore I'd never let another man inside my walls, or my heart. But then came Jesse. He was 30, bright-eyed, and full of the kind of confidence that made you believe in fairy tales again. We met at a charity gala I sponsored downtown. He was helping with event setup, an interior design consultant who seemed way too handsome to be hanging flower arrangements. When he smiled at me, I felt seen for the first time in years. "You're the Vivian Monroe?" he'd asked, shaking my hand like I was royalty. I should have known better. We started dating fast. Too fast. Jesse was charming, attentive, and surprisingly sweet. He listened to every word I said, even the boring business talk. He complimented me when I wasn't wearing makeup. He cooked, well, he grilled, and he made me laugh like I hadn't in years. My friends warned me about the age gap. My daughter, Emma, gave him that sideways teenage stare the moment they met. "He's hot, Mom," she said bluntly. "Too hot. That's a red flag." I laughed it off. We were married 6 months later in a private vineyard in Napa. Jesse wore a tailored navy tux, and I wore a pale gold gown with silk gloves. Everyone clapped like they were happy for me. Maybe some were. But I saw the judgment in their eyes. The whispers. "She's trying to hold on to youth. He's in it for the money." Maybe I wanted to believe in something good. Is that a crime? For the first year, everything seemed perfect. Jesse moved into my home and started working part-time with my interior team. He was always home before me. Always had wine ready, music playing. We danced in the kitchen. We slow danced in the hallway. He kissed my forehead every night like he really meant it. But then little cracks started forming. Jesse started coming home later. Said he was out networking with potential clients. He started working out more, like, a lot more. He got a new cologne, a fancy watch I know I didn't buy him, and started locking his phone. I ignored the signs. I told myself he was just evolving. Growing. And maybe I was insecure because of our age gap. That's what he said when I brought up my feelings. "Viv, come on," he told me one night while rubbing my shoulders. "You're overthinking. I love you. You're my wife." He said the right things. He always did. But words started feeling empty. And then Emma caught him staring at Lena Carter, the beautiful blonde next door, while she was sunbathing by her pool. Our backyards were separated by a short fence and a row of trimmed hedges, but not enough to hide his eyes. "She's married," Emma said, disgusted. "Gross. Don't tell me you don't see it." I told her to stop snooping. I told her Jesse would never disrespect me like that. But late one night, after Jesse said he was going to a client dinner, I peeked at his phone while it charged beside the bed. Locked, of course. New password. But the notifications were there, Lena. Can't stop thinking about earlier. When can I see you again? My stomach dropped. I didn't confront him that night. I just stared at the phone like it was a loaded gun. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't cry. I just sat there. I spent the next day pretending everything was normal. I made breakfast. Smiled through tight lips. Emma noticed. She always notices. You okay, Mom? Fine, I lied. Just tired. But I wasn't fine. I was done pretending. I went back and looked at everything with new eyes. The expensive cologne? Probably hers. The gold watch? A gift from someone else, maybe even Lena. The sudden charm, the late nights, the shift in energy? He wasn't mine anymore. Maybe he never was. That afternoon, Jesse came home with roses and takeout sushi. For my queen, he grinned. I took the flowers and kissed his cheek, pretending. And that's when I knew, I couldn't let this slide. I couldn't be another rich woman made into a fool. I had built an empire. I had survived divorce. I had raised a daughter on my own. I wasn't going to be some man's stepladder to a comfortable life while he fooled around in my own neighborhood. No. That night, I poured myself a glass of red wine and stood at the window, watching Jesse laughing with Lena over the fence. They were too close. Her hand touched his arm. His laugh was too loud. And I saw it. Not just flirtation, but familiarity. They thought they were clever. They had no idea who they were messing with. The next morning, I could barely look Jesse in the eyes. He made me coffee. Kissed my cheek like everything was normal. I smiled, tight, fake, and told him I had meetings all day. I didn't. What I did have was a growing ache in my chest and a plan beginning to form in the back of my mind. Emma was quiet at breakfast too. She watched Jesse the same way I did. Narrowed eyes. Silent judgments. She never liked him, but now it was more than that. She knew something. When Jesse left for work, Emma pushed her cereal bowl aside. You know, right? She asked softly. I nodded. She didn't ask for proof. She didn't say, I told you so. She just sat there, waiting, for what, I didn't know. Maybe for me to fall apart. Maybe for me to get angry. But I wasn't ready for either. Instead, I asked her for a favor. Lena's husband, what's his name again? Greg. He's a pilot. Flies out every other week. Do you know when he's back? She shook her head. Not for a few more days, I think. Perfect. Later that afternoon, I pulled out an old security camera box I'd ordered months ago but never installed. Jesse always said we didn't need it. It's a gated community, he'd shrugged. Why would we need cameras? Now I knew why. I called a tech friend of mine, Lyle, who worked in home systems and owed me a favor. I need these installed today, I said. No questions. Quietly. He came over while Jesse was out. We placed one small camera angled from the corner of the guest room window, just enough to see into the yard and the patio where Jesse liked to hang out. Another hidden near the garage, one inside the hallway by the side door, and a final one inside the pool house, just in case. By the time Jesse returned, everything was in place. Hey babe, he said, dropping his gym bag. You look relaxed today. I took a break. Needed it. He pulled me into a hug. His cologne, not the one I bought him, was strong. Musky. Expensive. Missed you, he whispered. I almost believed him. That night, I watched the cameras from my laptop. Nothing out of the ordinary, just Jesse scrolling on his phone, pacing, going outside to water the plants. But then around 10 p.m., while I was in the bath, I saw it. Lena's figure on the screen. She was standing near the fence. Whispering. Jesse appeared. Shirtless. Holding 2 glasses of wine. They leaned into each other. She touched his chest. He kissed her neck. I closed the laptop. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I poured myself another drink. The next day, I told Emma I'd be out for a few hours. Instead, I stayed nearby, watching the footage from my phone, refreshing every few minutes. At 3:41 p.m., Jesse opened the garage. 2 minutes later, Lena walked in. At 4:18 p.m., the side door opened. Emma had come home early from school. I didn't expect what happened next. She walked into the garage. I saw her freeze. I saw the color drain from her face. Then she ran back out. I sped home. By the time I pulled into the driveway, Emma was already in her room with the door locked. Jesse was shirtless in the kitchen again, pretending to cook like nothing happened. "Where's Emma?" I asked, my voice calm. "Upstairs, I think." She looked upset. I nodded. "You see Lena today?" I asked, pouring myself water. He blinked. "Nope." "Why?" "Just asking." I went to Emma's room. Knocked. She opened the door slowly. Eyes red. "I'm so sorry, Mom," she whispered. "What exactly did you see?" I saw them. In the garage. He had her up against the wall. He was kissing her neck. Her shirt was open. My body went numb. I didn't speak. "He saw me," Emma added. "He pulled away, but I already saw everything." That night, I couldn't sleep. My baby had seen the truth before I could even face it myself. That was the last straw. I needed control back. So I made an appointment with my publicist. I told her I had a big surprise to announce. Something that would change the narrative. Something dramatic. "I'm pregnant," I told her. Her eyes went wide. "Vivian, are you serious?" "Absolutely. Let's do a live interview. Big media outlet. Primetime. But you." "I'll handle the rest. Just get the interview scheduled." The next few days were full of fake doctor's visits, staged photos of me holding my stomach, and me slipping folic acid bottles into our bathroom drawer. Jesse, of course, was stunned when I told him. We're having a baby?" he stammered. I nodded, smiling sweetly. He pulled me into his arms. Wow. That's amazing." Lena backed off immediately. I could see it in the footage, her avoiding eye contact, keeping her distance. Of course she would. No woman wants to be the other woman to a pregnant wife. The best part? Jesse was now caught. Caught in a lie, caught in a scandal, and soon, caught in public. I was going to let the whole world see him for what he really was. Absolutely. Here's chapter 3 of The Trophy Husband. This chapter brings the tension to a breaking point, with the live interview and the dramatic fallout. Get ready for public scandal, raw emotion, and a wife who finally takes back her power. The interview was scheduled for Thursday at 8 p.m. Primetime. CBS Morning's weekend anchor, Stacey Dalton, agreed to come to our home for an exclusive sit-down. The press release said it was about my surprising second chance at motherhood. The network expected an emotional, heartwarming segment from a rich woman in her 40s. A miracle baby. A love story. They had no idea what they were actually walking into. 3 hours before the interview, Jesse came home with a dozen red roses and a bottle of sparkling cider. "For the mother-to-be," he said with that grin I used to fall for. I took the flowers with a straight face and placed them in the trash. "Don't you want them in water?" "They're already dead." He laughed, awkwardly. "You nervous about tonight?" "Not at all." I slipped into my dress, a soft ivory wrap that made me glow under the right lights. The makeup artist gave me soft curls and warm, natural tones. I looked serene. Poised. Untouchable. Emma watched from the stairs, arms crossed, silent. She knew what was coming. "You sure about this?" she whispered. "I've never been more sure." The cameras rolled. The lights warmed the room. Jesse sat beside me on the cream-colored couch, hand resting carefully on my knee like we were newlyweds again. Stacy smiled at us, prepping her intro. Vivian Monroe, she began, entrepreneur, philanthropist, and now, unexpectedly, a mother-to-be again at 44. Tonight, she shares her incredible journey. I smiled for the camera. Jessie squeezed my knee. We didn't plan it, I said, staring straight ahead. It came as a surprise, and a blessing. Jessie chimed in, we were over the moon. I mean, she's already such a wonderful mother. It felt like fate. Vivian, Stacy said gently, what made you decide to share this now, with the world? I took a breath. Because not every story is a fairy tale. And sometimes, the truth needs to come out. Jessie looked at me. Confused. Worried. I've spent my life building something beautiful, I said. But what happens when the person beside you decides to wreck it all? The camera zoomed slightly. Stacy blinked. I'm sorry, what do you mean? I reached under the couch cushion and pulled out the flash drive. This, I said, is what betrayal looks like. The room froze. I turned to Jessie. Say hi to Lena, won't you? He went pale. Vivian, what is this? I had cameras installed. I know everything. The garage. The pool house. Even your late-night wine tastings. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Emma stepped into the room, on cue, and placed the laptop on the coffee table. She pressed play. The footage ran silently. Jessie and Lena. Half-dressed. Whispering. Kissing. Touching. In my home. Stacy covered her mouth. Jessie stood up. Turn that off. You don't have permission. I have every permission. It's my house. My marriage. And my humiliation. You're not pregnant? He asked, voice shaking. I smiled. Oh honey, that was just the bait. He stared at me. Betrayed. Trapped. Unmasked. Stacy turned to the camera crew. Keep filming. The segment aired 2 nights later. They titled it, Betrayed, a Socialite's Secret Revenge. It went viral. Within hours, people were calling me a hero. Others called me insane. But I didn't care. I finally spoke the truth. I exposed him in the exact way he tried to destroy me, quietly, in the shadows. But I dragged it all into the light. Jessie packed a bag and left 2 days later. No apology. No words. Just silence. He moved in with a friend. Or maybe with Lena, I didn't ask. Lena's husband, Greg, found out shortly after. He filed for divorce. Emma started smiling again. And I? I slept better than I had in months. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't sad. I was free. People began reaching out. Agents. Publishers. A producer from Netflix. Everyone wanted my story. But I wasn't ready to hand it over. Not yet. Because it wasn't over. One night, a week after the interview aired, Jessie called. I answered, curious. You embarrassed me, he said, voice raw. You ruined everything. No, I replied. You did. There was a long pause. Did you ever love me? I thought about it. I loved the version of you I thought was real. But the man I saw on that screen? I never even knew him. He hung up. And I never heard from him again. The silence after the storm was the loudest part of all. For the first time in years, my phone wasn't buzzing with Jessie's schedule, or Lena's social invites, or charity gala reminders. Instead, I was flooded with messages from strangers. Some offered support. Some called me ruthless. And a few begged me to teach them how to expose a cheater the classy way. I didn't respond to any of them. The morning after the interview aired, I stood by the front window with my coffee and watched the street. I half expected Jesse to come storming back up the driveway, shouting for answers, or trying to clean up the mess. But he didn't. He was quiet. Hiding, maybe. Or planning. Emma joined me in the kitchen. Her eyes were tired, but lighter than they had been in weeks. Everyone at school saw it, she said. Yeah? They're calling you a legend. I laughed softly. That's not what I was going for. She sat down across from me. You know, I used to think you were out of touch. Obsessed with control. Always pretending like our lives were perfect. I looked at her, unsure of what was coming next. But now I get it. You were surviving. I blinked fast to keep from crying. I'd fought so hard for respect, for peace, and somewhere in the middle of that war, I forgot to show her I was still human. I'm sorry you had to find out the way you did, I said. I'm not. It was real. Finally. Later that day, the backlash began. CBS had to issue a statement about their unexpected footage. Some viewers claimed I used the network for personal revenge. Sponsors threatened to pull out from future interviews. My publicist quit. But I didn't care. I hadn't lied. I had told the truth on my terms, for once. Still, the fallout was everywhere. My nonprofit board requested an emergency meeting. Apparently, they were concerned about the image of leadership. I knew what that meant. They wanted me gone. I showed up to the meeting in a white pantsuit, hair pulled back, eyes sharp. One of the board members, an older man named Paul, cleared his throat. Vivian, your recent exposure has caused some tension. You mean telling the truth? He avoided my eyes. We feel it's best if you step down for now. Just until the media dies down. I stared at the men around the table. Most of them had probably cheated on their wives. Some were likely still doing it. And yet, I was the problem because I dared to speak up. I'll resign, I said calmly. But I'll start my own foundation by the end of the month. And I'll bring my donors with me. Paul's mouth twitched. You wouldn't do that. I already did. Emma and I walked out of there with our heads high. On the drive home, she asked, does this mean we're broke? I smiled. Far from it. The house was quieter without Jesse's presence. The way he used to leave his watch on the counter. The scent of his cologne in the hallway. Even his annoying way of singing in the shower. It was all gone. I thought I'd miss it. I didn't. But there was one thing I wasn't ready for. 2 weeks later, Lena showed up. I found her standing on the porch, looking pale and unsteady. I need to talk to you, she said. I didn't answer. Please. Just 5 minutes. I let her in. Not out of kindness, but curiosity. She stood awkwardly in the living room, clutching her purse like it held her dignity. I didn't mean for it to go that far, she began. You slept with my husband in my house. That's pretty far. Her face crumpled. He told me things. Said you were cold. Controlling. That the marriage was a business deal. And you believed him. She looked down. I'm sorry. I didn't care about her apology. I didn't want her tears. What I wanted was the one question that haunted me every night since the footage aired. Why here? Why me? She hesitated. Because you had everything. Money. Beauty. A perfect life. And I didn't. There it was. Not love. Not passion. Just envy. I nodded. Then I hope it was worth it. As I walked her to the door, she stopped and turned. I'm pregnant, she whispered. My stomach dropped. I didn't react right away. My mind raced through the possibilities. Lies? Truth? Some twisted game? And you want what, exactly? I asked. Nothing. I just thought you should know. I closed the door without another word. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, wondering if Jesse would try to come back. If he'd come crawling now that his side piece came with consequences. He did. 3 days later, he knocked on the door. I answered. He looked worn down, his usual swagger G. I nodded. I buried the version of you I loved the day I watched that footage. He left. Quietly. This time, for good. I stood at the window and watched his car disappear down the road. I didn't cry. Instead, I poured myself a glass of wine, curled up on the couch, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. A month after Jesse walked out of my life for good, I sat at the head of a long marble table inside a downtown conference room that still smelled of fresh paint. The walls were empty, the lights a little too bright, and the air full of promise. My new foundation, The Reclaimed, was officially launching. 15 staff members, mostly women, a few brave men, sat around me with bright eyes and nervous smiles. They believed in the vision. I believed in them. We were going to build something real, not another PR shell dressed in elegance and denial. I opened the meeting with the words I never thought I'd say out loud in front of strangers. I was betrayed. I was humiliated. And then? I chose not to hide. Silence fell. Not out of fear, but reverence. They understood. We're going to build a space for other women who've been broken by the ones they trusted. Not to sit in the pain, but to rise out of it. With dignity. With power. And with no apologies. The room burst into quiet applause. The kind that says we're ready. Later that evening, I went home to a house that had been rearranged. Not by movers or designers, but by me. The wedding photo over the mantel was gone. So were Jesse's cufflinks. His favorite chair. Even his espresso machine. I replaced it with a vintage record player and a stack of jazz vinyls I'd always loved, but had tucked away to make space for his things. This was my house again. My life. Emma had left that morning for a school retreat in Oregon. Before she got on the plane, she hugged me longer than she had in years and whispered, "I'm proud of you." Those words stayed with me all day. I curled up on the couch that night, a glass of red wine in one hand and a leather-bound notebook in the other. I wasn't writing speeches. Just thoughts. Honest ones. But before I could scribble the first word, my phone buzzed. A message. Unknown number. I watched your interview. I'm not sure whether to send flowers or ask for lessons. I stared at it, smiling faintly. Another one of the internet strangers? Or maybe someone from the past? I replied, depends. Are you asking for yourself or a friend? A pause. The unknown number. Replied. Myself. This is Marcus Monroe. I don't know if you remember me, but we met at a fundraiser last fall. I paused. Marcus Monroe. The widowed architect who had spoken on sustainable housing that night. Polished, quiet, and devastatingly intelligent. I remembered how Jesse had mocked his corduroy blazer. And how Marcus had barely looked at me, probably because Jesse was clinging to my side like a barnacle. I answered. I remember. How did you get my number? Marcus replied. Let's just say. A mutual friend believes in second chances. I chuckled, setting the phone down for a moment. It felt dangerous. Not in a bad way, but in the way stepping outside barefoot after a storm feels. Vulnerable. Real. I asked. Are you reaching out because you're curious, or because you're lonely? Marcus replied. Both. But mostly because I think you're the bravest woman I've ever seen. I didn't respond right away. I let his words sit there on the screen while I listened to Billie Holiday's voice drift through the room. And then, I replied. One coffee. No cameras. No lies. We met 3 days later at a small cafe on the edge of town. It was raining. Not heavily, just that soft, forgiving drizzle that turns everything silver. He was already there when I arrived, wearing the same corduroy blazer Jesse had hated. He stood up when he saw me. No awkward hug. No rehearsed lines. Just a warm, steady smile. "You look free," he said. "I feel it." We talked for hours. About everything. And nothing. He didn't ask about the affair, or the fallout, or Jesse. He didn't need to. He knew the whole world had watched. But more than that, he knew when silence said more than words ever could. He shared stories about his late wife. How they'd met in college. How cancer had taken her too soon. He wasn't broken. Just weathered. Like me. Before we left, he looked at me seriously. "I don't want to fix you, Vivian. I just want to sit beside you while you rebuild yourself." Those words cracked something open in me I didn't know was still closed. And for the first time since the betrayal, I felt something I hadn't dared to feel. Hope. 3 months later, the media had moved on. Jesse's name faded from the gossip blogs. Lena quietly moved to Arizona, pregnant, alone, and apparently blocked by Jesse himself. Emma and I grew closer than we'd ever been. We had honest talks. Raw ones. She knew I wasn't perfect. But she saw me now. Not as the cold, composed woman who ran charity galas, but as a mother who fought her way back to life with trembling hands and a sharp tongue. As for Jesse, I heard he was trying to pitch a book deal. Some nonsense about healing after betrayal. I didn't care. Because while he was trying to spin a new lie, I was living a new truth. I wasn't the same woman he left behind. I was stronger. Wiser. And finally, beautifully, free. That's the end.